and to which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thanks for venturing out in this crazy weather. Appreciate it. We're going to call to order a motion to call to order a public hearing. It's a informational meeting. Motion.
A motion to open a public hearing?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jack, you want to run through that?
Yeah, so I'll just open it up and then I'll, John Coffey can talk a little bit. We have some water projects coming up that are in the aggregate more than $2 million. And we've secured some funding from a couple of sources to try to virtually eliminate any cost to the users of the water system. And so we have to actually have a public hearing. We'll have more than one because we'll have them later. As we work to solidify the funding. So we've gotten from the state for lead service pipe removal, $780,000. And there's some more steps that we need to go through to actually be able to access those funds and use them on the project. And that's why we will have at another time a public hearing. And probably we'll have to have a special town meeting later in 2024 to you all to vote on that. At the same time, we also applied to Congress through Representative Shaheen's office for $1.47 million for the same purpose to contribute to the pool of money for these water system improvements. And that too requires some engineering, some public hearings, another town meeting to accept those funds. And do it right. But what we wanted to do today was to at least begin a discussion to let the community know and begin to create some records about, we got a lot of work on the water system over the next 2 or 3 years. It's really expensive work. It's going to result ultimately in probably a very modern new system that won't require additional capital improvements for decades, probably 50 years even, maybe longer. But this is kind of the start of the public dialogue to inform the public and kind of set the stage for ratifying the money we've gotten, to accept the money we've gotten, and to do what we need to do to actually be able to spend it and do the sort of engineering preparatory work that we need to do. On the board there, we'll probably have to close off the video portion a little bit for those of you in the room so you can see the map or the little drawing there that John Coffey, our water and wastewater licensed operator, we kind of generally talk about what the work is that needs to be done and kind of where it is. And so obviously for those of you in the room, the streets and the locations will mean more to you. So basically that's what today is about. Just to let you know, you got a lot of work coming up on the water system. We got a lot of money to make it happen. We are going to have a match that contributes some of those dollars. We're going to continue to do everything we can to minimize any impact on water and sewer users, and kind of more to come. It's a great opportunity. We've got some wonderful response from Congress for the 1.47 million. We got good response from the state for the 780,000. We've got a little money left of ARPA funds. And we will be borrowing some from the state revolving loan fund, which has like 1 or 2% interest, and you pay it back. So it's a good combined financing way to do a lot of work. But we have to kind of get it out there, let you know, and create that record, and in order to allow us to get the money and have John do the work. So John, do you want to talk a little bit about what some of these projects are going to be?
My poor sketch up there.
You
Right
can go
now,
up there, John, if you want. Put
we've
it up.
completed the work to the water plant. We did that last year and the year before. Okay, and now we're looking at the next phase of it, the phase 2 of it, to go from the water plant to directly to my water tower or tank, basically. And that's, we looked at that, the reason that we're doing that is we're gonna try to improve the water quality in the system. The problem now is that the water circles around town and ends up in the water tank. And then basically services this side of town after it goes to the water tank. So the problem is that the age of the water, it gets stale, basically what it comes down to.
Yep.
So by introducing fresh water into that tank, you're gonna get better water quality throughout the system. At the same time, you have the fire protection and everything else that are going. So right now I have Mike Duffy, our engineer from Horizons right here, working on actually doing the engineering from the water plant to the water tank, and that'll probably be our phase two. We're looking at trying to get that out for bid late 24 to perform the work in 25. Okay, the next phase, the bottom phase is from School Street, the little triangle at School Street, all the way down to the town hall. That is the last part of the 1895 line that's still in the system. And the problem there is I may have leaded goosenecks, the connections to the pipe. And I have leaded joints in that pipe, we know that. And we know that pipe is probably very tuberculated and probably in an 8-inch hole, there's probably about a hole that big in an 8-inch pipe, because of what's in there. I mean, it's tough to clean that pipe out. We know that coming down the hill, how tough the pipe is, what shape it's in. But we haven't actually physically gone down on this pipe, that 8-inch pipe that goes on along Church Street, right down to Depot Street. I know from flushing it, I mean, it's, it has to be flushed 3-4 times a year because of the coffee maker that's right next door to you guys. And if we try to keep your water quality up, it's a coffee, and they have filters in there, and they let me know when they have an issues. And the same thing, you get fed off of that at the town hall. It's the same line that you feed off of. So that line there, we know that there's major issues with it. And we want to eliminate it. We want to get the lead out of the system. That is our net goal in this whole thing. The EPA has come to us and given us a deadline this October to identify every piece of lead that we have in our system. And they want us to identify its location. They want us to notify the people that have lead in their houses. They want us to identify what lines we're gonna be replacing. We have been proactive by actually going out, identifying what we have. And we've applied for that $780,000. We're only the 11th system in the state that actually has been that proactive going forward. They're just sitting on all this money and they don't know what to do with it, basically, because those engineers are so slow. They have too much work. And
Because they're so busy, huh, Mike?
yeah, well, that's the problem. They have too much work. It's in essence that we knew that would be the limiting factor. But Mike's been working on this right from the start, and we've probably 6-7 years now, in essence, we've been promoting this program to go forward. We were fortunate to get the money from Gene Shaheen's office. Gene Shaheen came to Mike basically and said, we need this done in 6 days. So we ran around like with our heads cut off and put all the numbers together, submitted it, and basically we didn't hear from them for a year. They said, you didn't get it, and then suddenly they called us back and said, you did get it. That's how that all went through. So, I mean, we were very fortunate to get that. That is called an earmark, and then it basically eliminated them 15-20 years ago. And they brought them back online during COVID, basically what it came down to. And I think there was 30 programs in the state that they gave this money to. We were one of the fortunate 30 programs to get that money.
Mike, you want to
Mike,
add
you-
anything or?
Follow up?
I can add a little bit. So what will happen is there's an old cast iron line that comes down from where John has up there. It says CB, that's a chlorination building where, water gets chlorinated, then it goes cross country down to, what's that street down there? Collinsville? It goes down to, is it Bruce Road? And then it ties in. So all the water in your system, as John will say, it comes from the water treatment plant and it goes to the far end of town. And then it travels all the way through the water mains in town to the water storage tank. So even though the plant provides fresh water coming down, what happens is people use that water before it gets to the tank. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna send all the water to the tank. So all the water has to leave the tank as well. So it'll be, like John said, it won't be in the tank very long. Then it'll be a quicker turnover, which will help with ice formation. And then also it's chlorinated water. So the longer chlorine's in contact with water, it has a chance to develop things that you don't really want in it. They're called disinfection byproducts. So there's organics in the water and the chlorine kills them essentially, and then it creates other products. And so you want to get, keep the water as fresh as possible. So that's what that project will do. And then the other thing that John mentioned that there's that piece of pipe, old pipe on Main Street on Route 4. That'll be a challenging job because there's a lot going on there. And we have identified a couple sites that had soil contamination there from all the old gas stations. So we will have to deal with that during construction. We'll make provisions for that to deal with that soil if we hit it. And then, so that'll replace all the water services in that stretch, right from the water main to the house. Inside the house will be the owner's responsibility to change any piping there if you have lead piping in your house. A lot of house plumbing has gotten changed over during the course of the years though, but that pipe just outside the house to the water main hasn't probably been replaced all the way. So this will go all the way from the water main into the houses along that stretch. And then there's another 18. And then spread out through town in other locations, there's another 18 or so residences that have an old water service. Might have a new water main, but the water service is still very old, galvanized iron pipe probably. And that, there was the big uproar about the lead, I think in Minnesota or wherever that was, Michigan. And so that's, I think, what drove a lot of this lead removal. That was probably 5-6 years ago now. So that's only where some of this money is coming from to remove the lead. Lead services. So that'll be the same thing. We'll probably go from the water main or from the curb stop all the way to those other houses. And so, those people will be getting a knock on their door because we'll go in and figure out where the water comes in, what size it is, and the best way to replace that service. Horizons did a project down in Merrimack recently, where we had to replace services like that all the way to houses. And it was a little inconvenient for folks, but we got through. We were lucky we had a local contractor that knew everybody in town already pretty much. So, and they knew him, so that made it a lot easier because nobody usually likes people coming into their houses to look around. But so we will put a package together that will show each house in a sketch of where the existing pipe is and where we want to replace it. And then with this money, one of the things with this money is we're going to use, the money will be eligible for both projects essentially. The earmark money will go first towards the tank. But if there's any money left over from that project, we can put it into the lead removal project, because it's also a water main replacement that we're doing. So between the two funding sources, we believe that we'll have enough money to get both of those projects done. And maybe we'd even have a little left over for a couple other smaller projects that John would like to get done.
How many right of ways are required to get the chlorination plant to the tower?
We just have one property that we have to go over, and it's at the very end of Blaine Road. Blaine Road is a dead end.
Okay.
If you're at the end of Blaine Road, though, you can look and you can see the tank, essentially across a little gully there. I don't think we've approached that individual
It's kind of
yet, but they've probably seen us snooping around a little bit once or twice. But that will be something that
there's actually power lines that go through that whole section. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm not,
That
but-
started.
I mean, I know where you're talking, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I've been
Chiefs
up there.
Drive, that go all the way up from Chiefs Drive, all the way up through that, over the top of the hill.
To Blaine.
Exactly, yeah.
Uh,
I mean, and actually it keeps going further. So it's kind of funny, one person owns that whole set of right away. It's different. Usually the power company owns that.
Yeah.
We've discovered that someone actually owns it. So we'd have to basically negotiate with that individual to actually put the new line in along with the electric, have no electricity at the tank. And we have a transformer that sits right there, so we'd have to run from the last pole all the way over to the tank.
Shouldn't the negotiation with them kind of be
a priority on the list? Because if we get all this together and then they just say no.
Yeah, that's the thing that even before we start, we have to complete that negotiation. I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably even sooner than that.
Yeah.
I mean, that was what I thought. Yep.
Part of that Lane Road will probably get upgraded to some degree, you know, that's been, the frost action this year has been terrible. If you live on the dirt road, you know, and that road, has some spots that need some help, so what we would do is. Any project we do, we have to restore the road or things that get disturbed, lawns or whatever. We have to make them at least as good as they are to begin with.
Okay.
What we did, we just did a project in Enfield that was on a portion of Canaan. Well, we went and selected and gave the town an easement to put, and for Enfield to put the pipe there to go out to their wells. And as a part of that project, we replaced all the culverts for the town. We put a 6-inch layer of crushed gravel on top of the road. And did some other cleanup, you know, the road got a little bit wider, so we would be doing probably the same thing for Blaine Road, but this time it would be the resource would go into the town. The town of Canaan Road. And hopefully the road agent wouldn't, you know, want me to build them a highway out there that, you know, would just keep it pretty, it'd still be a gravel road, but it should be in a better drainage and culvert replacements, things like that, just as a part of the road.
Right.
And it's a lot easier sometimes to put a new culvert in and try to dig underneath it and around it and then it doesn't, you know, it's better just sometimes to put a new one in. Costs about the same amount of money. So that road would be upgraded a little bit too as part of the water project.
Where do we access the water tank now, John? If we want to go to our water.
Okay, Chiefs Drive, yeah, there's a 12-inch pipe that comes up basically from Hillport. And then follows right up and then it goes up to Chiefs Drive.
Is that still the plan? We'd still access it from there? Would we?
Oh, no, you can, we'll have electricity and then the new pipe in. We'll still have to access it from Chiefs Drive.
So that's what I mean,
Yeah, the
like
road.
physically
Yeah.
drive up to the tank, right? It won't come off the end of Blaine Road.
No.
We're just running,
Oh, no, we're
The
just running
line-
the pipe and the electricity underneath.
right, we're not changing, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I did see there was a letter that we, kind of a summary letter that we did back in August. To the town, and that's pretty much still valid, and that kind of gives a nice description of all of these different projects. And the funding sources that we're hoping for.
Great.
So we're under contract Horizons as right now, we're designing, we've done all the survey work. For Route 4 and also along Blaine Road, we've done all the survey work out there. And we're in the process of, you know, getting right of way shown, property lines and existing pipes and culverts and everything like that on those plans and then do the water design, water main design.
How far on so it'll come down Canaan Street along from the chlorination plant to Blaine Road?
Yeah, down Kernwood Farms to the intersection and then along. So we also have to go to the DOT. The DOT maintains Canaan Street, I believe, right?
So you're gonna cross Canaan Street like you do now, and then come down the
I don't think so. I think we'll.
Because we have a
come over.
pump station there, or
road.
we have a piece of property there, correct?
So I'm sorry.
We have a piece of property there that is part of the water system right there
Correct.
on the,
There are
going up
two.
the hill on the left-hand side, so.
Yeah, the cemetery's on the left-hand side and, you know, we try to stay away from cemeteries if we can.
Yeah.
Just because sometimes it opens a can of worms for you, so if you can avoid being on the same side of the road.
Hopefully not a worm. Literally.
So
So,
we'll have to go to the DOT and get a trench permit from them. You know, working with John, we may try to drill some of the pipe, you know, in some of these tough locations.
That wouldn't be on a drill.
because I thought originally, weren't we talking about going from the water plant? And we were talking about going across Cannon Street
Yeah.
down to the station that's in Miss Bliss's yard, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Don't we
yeah,
have to
yeah.
go to that anyway?
Yeah, we have to go.
And
there
then
anyway,
come
yeah.
back from there?
And
to
then
Blaine?
cross over to Blaine.
Right,
Yeah, but
So,
yeah, that is a very wet area. I don't know if you go across from Bliss's Park or
Yeah.
where her driveway is.
Yeah.
And you go, it's like a V down in there.
Hmm.
And there's a river that constantly runs through there, of the water coming down on Fernwood Farms. It's like a drainage area.
Yeah,
So putting anything in there wouldn't be recommended. I mean, it'd be a very tough place to work.
But we will have a service that would go across, we need to get it to the other side of Kane Street, one way or the other.
Right.
If we cross over, then we have to cross back.
Comes back, okay.
So maybe, but again, we kind of haven't really finalized the layout. My thought is it's a smaller diameter, there's 8 services
Yeah,
over there.
services with 2-inch pipe.
So, yeah, we would just bring a service over to there and then one of John's little projects, not a major project, but is to upgrade that little booster
Yeah.
station.
Make it into a booster station. So that the people that are there get low water pressure.
Yep.
Their water pressure runs between 11 PSI and 30 PSI on the bottom.
Mm.
So that basically we want to get it to active 65 to 68 PSI in their houses.
Okay.
So I did see a copy of this letter back there. I don't know if there's other, that's available to people if they wanted to.
Let's come back on the table.
Yeah, back, I see everybody, yeah.
I have a question for John and for Jag. So we received a promise of this money, but we don't have the money. We still have to apply for the actual grant from the
Yeah.
EPA.
We have, there's one thing that we know that we have to do is the environmental impact statement. Which Horizon's just finished and it's, as of today, it's finished. So we had to put it on public notice for 30 days. And we did it back September 15th, and now it's one for a full month. So we submit that to the EPA. That's one part.
Mhm.
And then there's 2 other parts. We have to submit a budget, full budget to it. Jag wasn't part of this, Arnetti was part of the original, he went to all the meetings, all the Zoom meetings and everything else. So there's 4 other items that we have to submit to actually.
Oh, I
Is it-
thought that
is-
we received notification of these prior to Ned being here
Yeah, but
in
he had to go,
2021.
you've had to go to meetings to actually follow through on everything. There's 4 different little sections that you have to follow through on.
Okay, so I guess my question is. It's pretty much, so I think that I have been told all along that this is a grant, we have the funding, so when I realized that there were still steps in the process to obtain that, I was really surprised. Is there any chance that we would not secure this funding?
It's,
Because I was, we had a meeting last week and when we got the information that we didn't have this money that we've been told for 3 or 4 years that we did, I think we were surprised.
We were.
And I think you may have been too, John, I'm not sure.
yeah, that
So,
was-
and Jack, do you have experience with this? Is it sort of if we follow the steps that they've laid out, we'll be okay?
At this point, I have some assurance we'll be fine. We just need to finish this process. The ball did drop. We didn't do things we were supposed to do in order to make it real, if you will.
Mhm.
The money is out there for us if we finish, as John said, finish the process,
Yeah,
do what we're supposed to do and get back on things.
So
So that delay is why we'll have a special town meeting later on and why we're trying to do this now. We're trying to pick up the pieces, put it back together and take it over the goal line so that while the appropriation is there, we can't access it yet because we haven't done everything we're supposed to do. So we have to do everything we're supposed to do. Then we'll actually be able to access both the earmark and the lead removal money that we've been, that are being held for us.
Larry, you had a question?
Yes, I was just curious, we're changing the way the piping is going, and by the way, thank you very much for your hard work. Are we gonna be going to a pump system instead of gravity?
Oh, no.
Because I know part of that,
it'll be all gravity to the tank. It's kind of interesting because when, K is infamous on this. They watch their elevations. So when the tank goes below 16 or 18 feet, I lose like 3 or 4, I lose Blisses and all those people up there. Because they didn't look at the total elevation that they needed. It needed to be 3 or 4 feet higher. The tank's 30 feet, basically elevation, I think it's 1,030. And the problem is that Blisses and then Butterfields and the people right there, you don't have enough elevation. So I mean, the water doesn't even get up the pipe that far. That's basically what happens. The water comes down into the pipe and doesn't get up to the pipe that far as the elevation sets. They were off by 3 or 4 feet.
So how will this help that?
This is actually where the pressure system will be for the 8 people that are on Canaan Street. That we're gonna give full pressure to for the first time ever, since the system's been in place. I mean, they're working, Bliss and those people, they're looking at 9 or 10 PSI. I mean, that's, I can't, it's hard to describe.
Yeah,
You could,
it's not much.
not much. So I mean, and as you get down the hill, you get down, further down the hill, you get up to 38, which still isn't enough.
It's a built-in water saver.
Yeah, well, that's the problem.
So John, if we get everything in line, when do we anticipate, and I'm sorry, maybe you said this before, when to actually starting, and then what's the time frame to complete?
We're looking at the, to the water tank in 25.
Okay,
So 20, it would, hopefully, he'll put this out in September, October of 24, put it out to bid. And then the spring of 25, we want it to be started. So, the same thing with the School Street to the Depot Street. That will probably be late 25, early 26.
we're getting there.
Yeah, that's now that money, so the water tank and then the ladder along basically on Route 4 will come out of the 1.47 million.
Mhm.
Right, that's what that money, we're doing a portion of that right now with the money left over from that we had from the original bids. They overestimated for $550,000. So that basically we had 230, 240 left over. And we've used a portion of it to do the engineering portion of this going to the water tank. That saves us money right there. And then in part of that 1.47 million, we have to have, like Jack calls it, skin in the game. So basically, we have to show that we spent so much money towards that project. And by doing so, we've done that. That's as it goes forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mike,
Just a couple of quick comments. I wrote the $1.4 million earmark application. And it was held up because of budgetary issues in federal law for almost a year, because there was no budget. See, you get, the way it works is Congress designates that the funding has to go to the applicant, but the money has to be appropriate, which it wasn't. In August, we were required, August of last year, August of 22, we were required to do a training program in preparation for applying for the EPA grant. Because yes, you get the earmark, Congress has said, give them the money, but you still have to go through the process of writing the application. So that's the issue that has to be done. When I left, they hadn't even started the application process. But I did meet with the board in December of 22, and made a recommendation to hire somebody to actually do that application, because an EPA application is not a walk in the park. It's difficult to do, and it requires engineering. So it's still I made the same recommendation to Jack 3 weeks ago. So it wasn't that it fell through cracks, it just wasn't right at the time I left. Didn't do it. The other comment is, I know I sent an email while you were talking to Jack and suggested that you check the wording in the earmark. Because there is a percentage of that funding in the earmark that has to be used to learn the move. And I think you told me, John, that the part of the river crossing you attributed to the need to get rid of levees. So that would help, but there is a requirement in that earmark that it has to be for the removal for project.
That was the use that we used to get the money. So we told them we'd be getting rid of the lead in the system.
Oh, yeah, the other comment I made to Jack in my email a little while ago, tonight, is that there's a brownfield site, when you're talking about contamination of soil. There's a brownfield site across from the town office where the garage used to be. And it encompasses lands as well that were part of Majewski's ownership. And as far as I know, there's still 300,000 or 400,000 in a reserve account to deal with contaminated soil on that site. It just hasn't been any indication of contaminated soil. It's about 5 or 6 test wells. They test them every year on the state roads.
And there hasn't been anything recently indicated. There was a problem over on Majewski's property. And a problem over by where the barbecue place is. But that funding is basically for that corner. And it's still available. So if you do run into a problem, call DES because they got a brownfield fund. It's been allocated and committed to that. So. That's it.
Mike, did you have something else, Mike?
I just kind of wanted to iterate a little more on the funding. You know, there's the pre-application, there's the application, we still need these other 5 things, you know, and so it is complicated and, you know, you're looking at essentially, we have 3 sources here that we're tapping into, the SRF loan, the earmark, and then the lead removal money. So when John said we've been around Horizons for quite a while, what we do initially is just do estimates, you know, just kind of napkin estimates, because you have to have something to start with to get the ball rolling with these different entities. So that's part of, you know, and then can be, you know, we have someone in the office that works pretty much most of their time is just helping write applications, whether they're loan applications, grant applications, whatever, because it's, you know, by the time you get done, it is a pretty thick document usually. And one of the things with that is, has the town authorized, you know, borrowing for their portion? So, you know, that final, you know, there will be someday, if you get all of the check marks on the list, there'll be an official letter saying, you know, well, here it is. You've got the money now, give us your routing number so we can send you money. And they'll continue through the process of disbursements of that money. And typically we help with that, because we're working on the budget anyways, and we would help, Horizons would help a lot of times with the disbursement request, whether to the EPA or to the state or wherever. But, you know, it is kind of complicated, and I think you guys, even though you don't have the money, I think you've been awarded, you know, it's been awarded to you, and it just hasn't maybe been finalized. You know, that there's a letter saying you have this, here's how much grant, here's how much loan. The town may need to, I don't know the conditions of the money, but it may be that the town has to spend the money to get reimbursed. So a lot of times you'll do like interim financing, you'll have the full amount in a loan from a bank or somewhere. And as money has been spent, you submit, and that's when the reimbursement will come after you. So sometimes you have to finance the whole dollar amount of the loans and grant to be able to pay bills as they're coming along before you get reimbursement. But I'm not positive on these. I know the SRF loan, we submit bills to the state, they send the money, then you guys pay the bills.
Our credit's good with you, Mike, aren't they? Isn't it?
What's that?
I said our credit's good with you, Mike, isn't it?
Oh, I'm not, I mean, I'm expensive, but, you know, not like the contract.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying. I think what's concerning for me is that the message that I had heard for the last several years as a member of the budget committee and CIP committee is that we had this and it was solely grant funding. And we had the money. So I'm glad we've clarified that now, and we're gonna take the steps that we need to take and get going on it. So, thank you.
Larry, do you want
Yeah, I'm sure that's already been thought of, but those 9 houses that are around 9 pounds of pressure.
Yeah.
May want to consider putting pressure regulators on all them.
Oh, we're gonna
And
have
step them
to,
up very
Yeah.
slowly because,
yeah, because the person at the bottom is gonna have 90 to 100 PSI.
yeah,
people up top are gonna
it's gonna be
68.
it's cold.
Yeah, so that's gonna be the problem, yeah.
And I don't mean to,
Oh, no, that's fine. We have what we have engineer for.
That's your job. I thought you didn't want my help on that one.
any other questions on the water? Yep.
Question, is there an end date on this project as far as like when the money from these grants has to be spent? I was under the impression that some of the ARPA money had to be all the way spent by the end of 25.
So my understanding, none of this is ARPA money, correct?
No
Yeah.
ARPA money.
Yeah.
So yeah, by 26, it has to be planned to be used by 25, it has to be spent by 26.
And
On
this
the ARPA,
project-
not on this project, but ARPA, on the ARPA.
and this project has a long.
No, yeah, it's got a longer span, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, but isn't part of the local match coming out of the ARPA money?
I think there's some of that left, but it will be appropriated within the timeline required by the feds. It may be dispensed a little later, but it simply has to be allocated we'll be able to allocate it before the deadline of any ARPA funds.
Yes.
I have a couple of questions, being, on that water line. I know that we've heard many times that the water line is going to be changed and upgraded and whatever. And in fact, a few years ago, we actually went through a major, upgrade of the sewer and water line. And at that time, part of the Main Street, Route 4, was part of that upgrading. That was supposed to be all, upgraded to, current, standards. We know that that didn't happen. It would be kind of nice to, not to kick history, but to kind of find out why that didn't happen and whatever happened to those funds that were part of that contract. It would be kind of nice to understand that. The second thing I've got is, I know John's drawing is phenomenal up there. I'm very curious. I know that where, what the chlorination house used to be.
exactly.
There's a line that goes down on the back that is cast iron, and some people have believed that there's still a wooden log that's in back there. So,
it's in your backyard.
and it's in my backyard, which also goes out to the housing for the elderly. So
Yeah,
that's the
yeah,
question
yeah.
that I'm asking. Is this anything that's gonna be considered at that part? Because if you're gonna go over the tank,
Mhm.
right, which is phase 1,
Yeah,
what I'm understanding, which again, that elevation is gonna give you another 2 pounds every foot of elevation.
yeah.
Which is gonna give you fresh air. Coming out of that, coming back across the road, you're gonna tie back into what the old chlorination.
Yes, coming through, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's only for those 8 houses?
that's the gatehouse.
All right, now how are we gonna get the line down streets? That's gonna be one probably the opposite side of the cemetery?
You're gonna be on this side, and then we're gonna go back under in through Blaine, basically, right in front of where Joe Butterfield's
Right,
driveway is, and go right underneath into Blaine.
okay, that's taking care of that side. What about this side, coming down into town,
On this side.
coming down into town?
I don't have, the last one that I have is right across from the baseball field. That's the last one. There's a huge chunk of rock that comes across there. Actually, there's several people that have tried to build there and found,
Oh, blasted.
yeah, blasting, and the problem is it comes right across the road. You actually can see it this time of year. You can see it popping up through the road. That's how bad it is. It's a huge chunk of rock. There's 2 huge sections of it that come right across Canaan Street. That's why they never built anything.
That's right.
They go up through it.
So the question then is it's going to be a new water line coming from someplace out of that tank, coming
Yeah.
down Route to Canaan Street. And it'll be tying in to,
Nothing though, it's gonna go across Blaine to the tank. And
right,
all the water will be fed from the tank. So that line that it will be taken out of the system. That 8-inch line that goes cross country behind your house
right,
will be taken out of the system and then down into the swamp where it doesn't work.
that's all gone.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, now the feed,
Yeah.
because it's important, that line did feed that 8-inch, and then the new 8-inch that was put in behind the elementary school.
Yes, exactly.
That comes out and now feeds the housing for the elderly, which is a 6-inch line.
Yeah, the 6-inch line that goes up the hill.
But if you cut that line out of there, is there going to be an extension from Route 4 going up to give them water supply going up there?
So they'll have, that's an 8-inch going down the road. Going down the road in front of, the streeters. We found that when he had the fire, one of the fire department truck back right over the valve. We actually found a valve hidden underneath the driveway.
But is there that line all the way up the street?
Yes, all the way up the street.
Okay.
Goes all the way up the street to the hydrant and it ends right there. And then they have a 2-inch line that feeds up around the corner and goes up into their first building. And goes through subsequently follows through to the other 3 buildings.
Okay, so, because if you cut that off, and you were relying on that 2-inch line to feed the housing.
Oh, no.
We're in trouble.
Oh, no, you would have no fire, you'd have no fire pressures, both if
We didn't even have water. The
Yeah,
elevation. was gonna be- Okay, so that's included in this system.
Mhm.
Sounds good. It would be nice to history of finding out why that wasn't done as part of that funding.
So they,
That-
no, 89, 89, 90.
I'd be curious of that as well.
do you know, John?
Yeah, that's, well, they were cutting, it looks like they were cutting portions of it out. Because it saved money.
Before they did the water conversion. And we ran out of money at the time. So the chief guy in the last piece. That goes way back, goes back 40 years.
No, this is within 20 years.
Now, there would have been, well, 30, almost 50.
Yes,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Time flies.
I think we all just gotta wake up call.
All right,
Yeah.
anything more? Motion to close the public hearing,
So moved.
all in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Talking about warrant articles, I want to thank, first of all, the CIP, the department heads, Jack, the budget committee, really for starting the process this year much earlier than we normally do. And then working tirelessly. We've had a lot of challenges this year financially and looking ahead to what we want to try to do and make some changes to where we're spending some money, from equipment to roads and everything else. So it's all obviously all coming to a culmination now as we approach town meeting. Last week, the selectmen and the budget committees both voted on all the warrant articles. At the budget committee, the following night, they vote after the selectmen meet. They put together a proposal to try to offset some of the tax increases by using some of our undesignated funds. I want to say that we listened, and we approached it. They were looking for 400,000 to come out of undesignated funds. We came up with three or four of the articles warrants that come up to 383, which will significantly lower our tax burden. So it's still going to be a high one. I think it's higher than what we've been used to, but I think it's very manageable. I hope it's manageable. We have a lot of goals we're trying to hit. The biggest complaints we have day in and day out are the condition of the roads in Canaan. Secondly, the other big hot topic is the library and the condition of that building, the outside of that building. So we're trying to address those in a variety of ways for the roads, from equipment and for increased spending money on paving and road reconstruction. So this is proposed. The items that we want to use undesignated funds for that are going to change and we need to vote on is Article 8 for 150,000 to be added to capital reserve for fire truck. We originally voted 3 yeses on that and 0 no's.
I just want to, before we do this, say that the reason that we ultimately didn't, or initially did not say that it came from the unreserved fund balance is because there's significant concern about our unreserved fund balance and that we're not holding enough.
Right.
That's been addressed by our auditors. We have had warning letters from DRA. We've had a letter in the past that we've overspent it. So this will affect our bond rating potentially when we go to borrow money for things like the rest of the water and sewer project or any other lending, because we're not holding aside the amount that we should. So in an effort to try to start moving things forward in the right way and in the way that our finance manager advises us, this is why. And we don't want the budget to go up either, but this is why we did not have it pulled from this money that we really shouldn't. And I know, I don't want to really put Carrie Ann on the spot. I know she's on Zoom. I don't know if she has anything to add from her perspective and her experience.
I think in general, there's an interest in the board and in the finance office to increase the amount of unreserved fund. I think that competed against a rather dramatic increase in this year's budget with the warrant articles and the budget changes to the equipment. So I think that my draft at this moment is a bit of a compromise to try to recognize that while it would be helpful in a lot of ways, ponderating to just having more money in savings. But to mitigate the impact on the budget, to try to take a multi-year approach to.
Yeah, and I understand that. I can
Yeah.
just see this happening again next year. You know, and if we don't put as much in the CIP or we hold back from this other fund and then we're not. And when we're in the position that we're in now, where we need all this funding because we delayed things like maintenance on the library and we delayed. Equipment purchases or purchasing new equipment, we purchase used, so that's. Why we are where we are. So that's just my concern. I just want to put that out there, so. While I support funding these capital reserves, when we vote, I'm going to abstain because I'm not completely on board with pulling it out of the unreserved fund balance.
See, I share a lot of those same concerns. I spoke about that at the budget meeting that I was at, the last budget meeting. And I have mixed feelings on it as well. And I think I share your concern. The reason we're in the situation we're in is because we just spent our money without saving anything. And, you know, I tend to be on board with, try to get a little bit of a cushion so when we spend it doesn't hurt as much. And I worry about the same thing happening next year and the next year and the next year, because we're in the same spot. But after we're talking with Carrie Ann a bit, we're going over some things with Jack, looking at some numbers that we have. I don't disagree with you. That's not what I'm saying, but I think I lean towards offsetting, you know, helping with the warrant articles with it. But I share your concern, and I think that's the reason that we're in this situation we're in.
Yeah, and then I think ultimately we're three people and we, you know, everyone in town gets to decide, and so
That's right.
that's, yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Mike, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I don't have a copy of it. I don't think there were enough to get up to the front of it. But I raised this at the budget committee last week. And I knew that there was concern about it, so I took the source documents, basically carrying in documents. And the DRA documents and document what, all based on either Carrie Ann's numbers or DRA. And what it shows is that the number that's been assigned fund balance as of today was $968,807. And I'll make sure I put one in the email to the board. So you got a copy of it. But again, the numbers all come from Carrie Ann and from DRA. And I know there was fear that there was no money in the account. There was fear that we weren't putting money into the accounts. I've told in the past that voters that we were putting about $1 million into the account a year. We're also taking $450,000 out of the account during the year in order to pay for the capital reserves. That was, and every year except one, it was restored of the fund. That one was when we had a really bad year with a court case. And that killed us. But in other circumstances, right now, this shows that we have about 986,000. And I appreciate that Board of Selectmen using some of that funds to cover some of the costs. It will make a difference on the tax rate next year of about 10%. So your tax increase would have been 10% higher without losing.
And that's 10% on the municipal rate, not the overall tax rate.
Correct. So Mike, to be clear, that's 10% on the municipal rate, not the
Not-
entire
not the
tax
total.
property rate. So,
And I know, Mike, you and I have gone back and forth on this at the CIP committee, and I think we just have to agree to disagree, because I choose to believe the reports from the auditors and from DRA and the calculations of the unreserved fund balance, so I don't agree with the number that you came up with. I appreciate you doing the work.
And I appreciate you having a difference of opinion. I just want to point out that all these numbers came from our accounting firm and DRA and Carrie.
all right,
And, you know,
we're gonna
I
move
believe
on.
in transparency as much as everybody else does. So in transparency, this year, one of the reasons why it is so high is because somebody approved an overlay of $245,000 in extra taxes when the tax rate was set in October. So in essence, you raised $245,000 because you feared apparently that abatements were gonna be $245,000. And your abatements are somewhere around 10,000. So for transparency purposes, you would not have had $1 million, but for the fact that that was raised by 247.
That is correct.
Sandy, you're right, that there would not have been $1 million this year, would have been somewhere around 700,000. And, but it also is up because, arbitrarily went up 245,000, the taxes to be raised. Which is never, it's always been up a little bit, like somewhere around 5,000 or 20,000 accidents. The 240 is a big slug you're going into the overlay. For those of you who don't know, the state of New Hampshire has a law, I think it's RSA 79. And it allows the Board of Selectmen to increase the taxes to be raised above what the voters appropriated, if they believe there's insufficient money because of lack of abatements or for some other emergency situation that impacted the taxes. And that you can use, but I warned the board for years, the Board of Selectmen and the Budget Committee, to be careful of that because it's really not accountable to anyone. It's not accountable to the Budget Committee or the taxpayer. It's really up to whoever sends the tax. And there are times when you gotta use it, but it's usually for a nominal sum. And ironically.
Thank you, Mike.
the law, you have to have some of them.
Thank you, Mike. Karen?
Why you approve that another, overlay in October?
For the abatement process that we were up against.
And did it come to fruition? That
As,
was it?
as Mike said, it looked like it came in quite a bit less than that, so. But we had threats for it and a lot of it had to do with, well, I'm not gonna get into the details, so.
Okay, so we came out ahead on that, correct? And now it's in the undesignated fund balance.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. And that lended to why we made the decision we did to carry it too, so.
Yeah, and I would just like to say that I had, I'm on the budget, I was very concerned with all of the way you wanted to fund the capital reserves, that the voters were gonna turn down all the stuff that some of which we really need. And so I appreciate very much this compromise that you made, and I'm on the committee for a few more years, and I would like to see this undesignated fund balance go up, and we will do our best to make it so people can pay their taxes in this town, and we can still have the services and the repairs and so on that we need.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Karen.
Thank you, Karen.
Do we want to vote on each of these tonight?
Let's
Okay.
get it rolling.
So Article 8 was for 150,000 for the fire truck capital reserve. And to come out on designated funds, that was the only change. We voted originally 3-0. I still say yes.
I abstained.
I still say yes.
Yes, one abstain.
We had one before. that.
Yeah. And I apologize, I missed Article 6, I believe. So we are looking to, another is to lease some equipment for the, four pieces of equipment for the highway department. The first payment of that lease program is 170,000, roughly 169,599. Our recommendation is have that first year's payment to come out of the unreserved fund balance. We voted originally 3-0. Budget committee voted 5-3. My recommendation, my vote is still yes.
I'll abstain.
So we have 2 yeses, 1 abstention.
Do we have a motion to vote on? I don't know if we made an actual motion. I'll move that we revisit these articles.
Thank you.
Second.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Do we need to re-vote on those now? Article 16 is for, no, I'm sorry.
21.
Article 21, 40,000 to be added to the Bridge Capital Reserve Fund. Original vote, select board was 3-0, budget committee was 8-0. My vote is still yes,
I'll abstain.
My vote is still a yes.
2 yeses, 1 abstention. And Article 22, appropriate to the government capital buildings capital reserve for 23,000. Again, to be taken out of unreserved fund balance. The net total, like I said, is, I believe, just under 383,000, the combined total. Excuse me, the original vote for this was Selectmen 2, 1 no, Budget Committee 7 yes, 1 no. I am still a yes on this.
I'll abstain.
Because of the changes that we are proposing, I will change and I will be a yes.
So we have 2 yeses, 1 abstention. Thank you. This does not have to go back to the budget committee for vote because it doesn't change the dollar amount of any of those warrant articles. So hope to see you all at deliberative session on February 3rd
Please.
and then voting on, I don't even know what off the top of my head. So. And next on the agenda is we have a presentation from Community Power Coalition. And asking us if we'd like to join, and I'm sorry, I don't have your name and apologize.
Andrew Hatch.
Thank you,
Hey,
and
Andrew?
nice to meet you. Thanks for coming in and venturing out in this weather.
Andrew is here on behalf of the Clean Energy Committee, and he is with the coalition, and he will be able to walk you all through it, and we're very excited about this opportunity. We have Bill and Courtney from the Enfield Energy Committee, and their town has already joined us. So if there are questions about that, but.
Excellent.
Wet, wintery night, so. Let Andrew get going.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Get the technology working, if you just give me 1 second, so you said to share. Where would you want me to stand? Wherever it's the.
Say about the water tower.
Yeah.
Wherever you want. Well,
The microphone's right here.
Okay.
Worse, you can either face this crowd or that crowd.
Okay.
Right, it's more here.
Okay, I can do it over there, you can do it any way you want.
You
know.
It's Blaine Road.
Hopefully we'll get PowerPoint going. This is just a copy of the slides that I'm going to do through if you like it. I'll have these to hand. Some more.
And ultimately, this submitting those electronically, we can put them on our
website.
And like Jack was just saying, these, we just got a copy of the slides that we're gonna be looking at, but we've just asked, we're gonna submit them electronically and we'll put them on our website so everyone can review them as well.
How long has Enfield been involved with the program?
Well, coalition was incorporated in October of 2021. But we were involved rather, we approached our select board October 2019. So again, it was a startup, so it took a lot of time, energy and effort to get things going, and it took 2 years for the organization to become incorporated.
Okay.
So now it's been incorporated for 2 years. Yeah.
Okay.
And we just started receiving energy through this, as of May 23. I think, Johnstown was also inaugural. Yeah.
County, yeah.
County, yeah, Olympic County.
County government.
Yeah. So as well, the kinks have been worked out.
Yeah.
So we're here to, now that the kinks of the hard work, which,
Yeah, good ones, then I'll check.
they save everybody some money.
So has it become the same organization that you guys are using? Okay.
It's basically, it's a group of all the towns pooling together as to kind of create a big sign, economy of scale.
Right.
And the coalition is basically does all the, purchasing, risk assessment, that kind of thing, and programs. Aiden will be, if you just, he'll walk you through all this, but basically once you agree to join the Joint Powers with the Community Power Coalition, then you can explore doing actually kind of a plan specifically for Canaan, but it's all run through this, and you can still use Liberty for distribution.
Yeah.
You could just swing it up.
Yeah,
We'll put it up there.
okay, folks, I'm sorry that technology has got the better of me. I'm just going to explain this because the purpose of this evening is to introduce the concept of community power. A couple of months ago, the selectmen were sent a letter of invitation, and what I was doing tonight was just to present community power as a concept so that they understood the steps that need to be taken in order to adopt it in the town of Canaan, and more importantly, what it really involves. So firstly, what is community power? The concept is that a town or municipality, or indeed a county, can adopt community power and replace the default electric supply from the utilities in town. So here we have Liberty, we have the co-op, and so they are regulated utilities that provide your power. Their responsibility as a distribution utility is to maintain the poles and the wires, to continue with the billing process, and to ensure that the reliability is maintained. So nothing changes in that respect to your relationship with your utility. However, for many years, the utility's responsibility for the provision of the electricity, the supply, has been a pass-through. They are legally not allowed to profit from that. So what happens is that twice a year, on a date certain, the utilities procure power. And depending upon market forces, that can be a good day, or as we all know, last year, a very bad day. The coalition that I represent is a non-profit. There are a variety of ways to be able to launch community power, but the Community Power Coalition of New Hampshire is, as I said, a non-profit group and a power supply organization. And we have been around since 2021, but the law that allows community power to be launched in New Hampshire was originally authored in 2019 and then amended to allow an opt-out concept. And this is what's important, because community power, community aggregation, as the term is used, the concept of people pooling together, it's often described as a buying club, where the more folks who are involved, the more power that's required, the better pricing that can be purchased on the marketplace. But as I said before, the utilities are unable to benefit from the opportunities out in the marketplace. They're just mandated to procure power on behalf of those people that don't get their power elsewhere. Now, we have all been able to procure our power through third parties for many, many years, but certainly local residents have tended not to do that. It's more often commercial businesses and sometimes municipalities that work with a third-party energy supplier. So we're just talking about the folks who take the power directly from the utilities, not through these third parties. As I said, RSA 53E is the relative to aggregation of electric customers by municipalities and counties. The whole concept is set in law. Customers can switch from the utility default and take service from a competitive supplier. They can switch in and out of this program. It's completely voluntary. And the cornerstone of it is it will not launch unless folks can save money over the default rate. So that's a really important concept. And the second most important concept is that community power must be paid for from the revenues from the participating customers. It won't burden the town. It won't be a burden in terms of administrative overhead, and it won't have any liabilities to the town for any financial repercussions. The idea is to get local control, lower costs, perhaps promote local initiatives, development of clean energy, and to provide some resilience and innovation. And what I mean by that is that, again, because the utilities profit motive is not there in terms of procurement and making money from electric supply, nor is there incentive particularly to invest in the technology that exists today. And many of our customers may be aware of ideas such as time of use rates, battery storage projects. There's a lot of things in the news, but regrettably, the utilities have been slow to adopt these technologies, and it's the intention of the coalition to continue to lobby and drive towards that innovation, which is going to help people save money and improve reliability. What I would be showing you today is just some examples of things that don't change. This is a Liberty bill that none of you can see clearly, but the only thing on your Liberty bill or your New Hampshire Electric Co-op bill that would change would be the little box that's called electricity supply charges, and it would say you've chosen community power to be your electric provider. Other than that, there's nothing that changes. Now, I'm going to jump ahead slightly because if you do adopt and then decide to launch community power, there's lots of notice requirements. There's a 30-day notice requirement prior to launch. Everybody will receive a letter in the mail explaining exactly what's going on, giving them the opportunity to opt out if they so choose. They just have to call an 800 number, go online, send an email, what is most convenient to them. If they're already on a third-party supplier, they will be informed of the fact that nothing will happen unless they act. It might be in some people's interest to join the coalition, depending upon the prevailing rates, and some may just continue on with their third party. As I said before, the utility will continue to deliver the electricity. All the rates are posted 30 days in advance, so everybody knows what's going on. There's no penalty, there's no exit fee, and you can drop in and drop out at will. And as I said before, it's completely self-funded and no taxes are used to cover the program. So the bigger message is not much changes, and there's very little action required to benefit from the lower rates provided by the coalition. The Community Power Coalition is currently 50 members strong. We're representing almost a third of the population of New Hampshire. And it was only last April or May when our first communities launched community power. One of your neighbours here, Enfield, launched, as I'm sure many of you know. We have Joe Ellen Court, one of the founders there. So they are coming around to their first anniversary. And during 2023, 16 towns and 1 county launched. And then we're on deck now with another 9 communities that are launching directly and a further 3 launching through the county of Cheshire that has organised itself in a slightly different way. That opportunity as a county is not available in Grafton County at the moment, but conversations are ongoing. And as I said, of the 50 members, it's only half of them launched. The other half are going through the process of getting to town meeting this year in order to authorize and move forward. And that's what I want to speak to a little bit more in detail in a moment. But right now we're serving 80,000 customers. By March, we'll be serving 120,000 customers. We're larger than Unitil or Liberty loads. And after March, we will be exceeding those of the New Hampshire Electric Co-op. It's a lot of money that is being generated in revenue. And as I said, as a non-profit, what a for-profit organization would pocket as profit is recycled into reserves, community reserves. And these reserves are primarily being used to create a robust, financially secure organization that's able to grow and leverage the purchase of power on a very large scale and lower the cost of electricity and to maintain that low cost, even during times of volatility. In terms of who is the Community Powers Coalition, the board of directors are 20 strong. They are all members of the launch communities who started the coalition. We have boards, we have 7 boards that are also staffed by members of the coalition, all volunteers, a great deal of expertise, people from the power procurement industry, from the utility industry, as well as a lot of people with a lot of municipal expertise. But we also outsource to subject matter experts for procurement, maintaining customer service and data, and all of the legal and accounting that's required. So just to reiterate, basically, we're looking at competitive rates, expanded choices. There's opportunities to collaborate with neighbors and to work on developing projects locally. There's the fiscal stability and financial reserves that I mentioned. And also we have public advocacy and innovation, meaning that we have now a director of regulatory and legislative affairs who's working to represent the consumer's interest in Concord, to lobby for the development and availability of a lot of these innovative concepts. Last year, we were lucky to bring on board a CEO, Brian Kalman, who is from the New Hampshire Electric Co-op and previously has had over 25 years of power procurement in Vermont. Brian brings a lot of ideas and concepts and is a great leader in terms of moving this organization forward. So to talk about money, right now, we're just about to embark on a new 6-month period. February 1st, your rates are going to change. So if you're a New Hampshire Electric Co-op customer, your rate as of February the 1st will be 10.16 cents. If you're a Liberty customer, it would be 9.76 cents. If you were at the point of adopting community power now, the basic level of community power is 8.1 cents. So as you can see, there's money to be saved immediately. The coalition matches its rate setting to the way that the utilities operate on a 6-month cycle. It's not mandatory, but it's the way we do it. And we feel it's the easiest way to folks to have a very easy comparison. That rate of 8.1 cents is called the Granite Basic. That is the minimum amount of renewable energy allowed in the state of New Hampshire, which in 2024 is 24.3%. It's the same renewable content that the rate from the default rates from the utilities. However, there are 3 other rates available to customers, and all they have to do is call an account number and opt out. There is a 33%, a 50%, and 100% rate. And the highest rate, Clean 100, right now, as of February the 1st, I should say, will be 12.4 cents a kilowatt hour, which is actually lower than the current prevailing rates of the utilities. So we have now we're just about to embark into our 3rd rate cycle, and we have maintained a competitive advantage over the utilities throughout that rate cycle. And it's our intention to continue doing so, even despite the very positive reduction in overall energy costs. the February to July rates have dropped by 26%. It's almost unprecedented. And we are still able to compete and undercut those rates. The process to launch community power in a town, in a municipality, is, if you choose to do it through the coalition, to join the coalition with what's called a joint powers agreement. It is a non-binding commitment. It just allows you to become a voting member of the coalition and avail yourself of the services, providing you with a lot of boilerplate information, making it less of a heavy lift to move forward. The select board would appoint a group who would be responsible for developing an electric aggregation plan. It's what's mandated in the rules of engagement under the RSA and the Public Utilities Commission. The plan will represent the will of the town of Canaan. Nothing is being pushed on Canaan in terms of what your goals and objectives might be. There are suggestions and examples of other neighboring communities, but it's very much what Canaan wants. It could be as simple as, we just want to save money and everything else can be separated from that. Or it can get into a great amount of detail in terms of goals and objectives and ideas. Once that electric aggregation plan has had 2 public hearings, that can then be submitted to town meeting for a vote. The vote would be to adopt the electric aggregation plan and to empower the Board of Selectmen to move forward at a time of their choosing and launch community power. So obviously we are now very close to town meeting this year. It is not practical to consider a warrant article for this time around. I did hear mention of a special town meeting. And in fact, last year, a community who wasn't able to meet the deadline of the town meeting did decide to have an interim special town meeting, and they then got on deck to launch, and they're just about to launch in March. But fundamentally, this process is a year long to get to launch. Unless, of course, there's the opportunity to do it through the county model, and that conversation is, as I said, ongoing in Grafton. Yes, sir.
So I've been involved in something similar to this. Now, is this like, I wouldn't be a Liberty customer anymore? I would be a community. So if my power goes out, I have to contact you?
Absolutely not. That's what I was saying earlier. You will have your relationship with Liberty or whomever your distribution utility will remain exactly the same. It's their responsibility. It's how they make money, by charging you for distribution services. There's just a component in everybody's electricity bill that's an energy service. And that's the piece that changes. That's the piece that would say on your bill, you are receiving your power from Canaan Community Power. But there would be no change if you have an outage, if you have a problem, you still call your utility. We do have a call center that can handle billing inquiries, opting out, opting in, opting up. But in terms of maintaining reliability and connectivity to the grid, that's still the responsibility of the utility.
Okay, well, I've had the scenario I've seen before was that Liberty wouldn't fix that customer until they fixed all their own customers.
Mhm.
And then whoever was on the other company were the last ones to get fixed.
Right.
So that's more important to me, that it works,
Mhm.
rather than say a couple dollars a month.
Mhm.
I'd rather have it work every day.
Right. I'm not sure what you're describing, sir, because actually that scenario in terms of selective connectivity to the grid is honestly not really how it works. There are some supply line, transmission lines where the co-op is at the far end of a line that is in the middle is with Liberty and things like that. But the folks who are fixing the lines aren't sitting there with a list of who's on, who's receiving default power and who isn't. As I said before, the opportunity to be on a third-party supply has been available for decades. And it's not a practice, and there is no benefit to the utilities to punish somebody to be with a third party, because in fact, they make no money out of providing you that service.
It wasn't Liberty Utilities, but it was not a power company.
And
Okay,
Andrew, you said it's up to each individual household where they purchase their power from. So if we became a member of this, that doesn't mean that everyone in Canaan has to purchase their power through the coalition, correct?
well, as I said before, it is the way it's constructed is an opt-out concept, because it is replacing a default service from the utility with a default service of local community power. So so people will be enrolled unless they choose to opt out.
So if someone had a concern, they
Yeah.
could opt out.
Absolutely, and we
Perhaps we should settle this with a sword fight.
over the period of almost a year now, we have had under 1% of opt-outs across all of the launch communities. It's a fraction of 1%. I'd ask the question, unless there was something particularly unusual, for folks to not have to do anything and save money is a very compelling proposition. But we do want to make sure that it's completely voluntary and we're not forcing it on anybody. Yes, sir.
First of all, the Liberty Utilities only charges for moving the power. They don't charge you for, they don't make a profit on power, like you're saying.
Right.
But they do charge you for moving the power.
Yeah.
No matter if it's from you or any, you
Mhm.
still have to pay to have the power moved. Secondly, I really don't like the idea of the select board or anybody signing me up with a program that I have to opt out of. Sounds like your program is good, but the only way I could accept something like that is if I opt in.
Mhm.
If I'm automatically opt in without me, sometimes you don't look at it. You got 30 days to decide whether if I'm opting into this. I don't like that at all. And your plan sounds great.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying nothing about that, but
Well,
I don't like have to opt out of anything, because that's the way today is. Before you know it, you got a new pair of sneakers, and you ordered shoelaces.
do you purchase your power through a third-party
Yes, I do.
provider? So it won't affect you, sir, because you are not
But it
enrolled
affects
in.
my neighbor and everybody else. I'm speaking.
Well, if we're looking at your neighbor, I'm just suggesting that your neighbor might benefit from saving money.
So,
But
so I
it should be
understand,
his choice to opt in, not
Right,
have to
but
opt out.
that unfortunately doesn't work, because the opportunity to opt into lower priced electricity has been available for 20 years. But the critical mass that is what aggregation is, and that creates the competitive marketplace that lowers the price of electricity, is not available unless it's operated as an opt-out rather than opt-in.
Well, we're just a bunch of hillbillies, and I'll tell you, if a bunch of people find out that they're electric. No matter if they're saving the money or not, if they will automatically opt into something because they didn't read the bill glasses. There's gonna be a lot of pissed off.
But you do.
I'm sorry, that's just, there's nothing to do with. If they're saving
As
money.
I was saying, this would be a discussion that would
That would be
start
good.
with a public hearings,
Yeah.
would be a vote at town meeting, and that would then authorize the select board to act, but they can't act on your behalf until that's gone through that democratic process. And as I said, once they do decide to launch, then you would all receive notification. So everybody would be fully aware way ahead of time what is going to happen and what the benefits are of considering to stay.
Like I say, I'm sure your program's fine,
Mhm.
but things change.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I would like to address Larry's comment. You still have the democratic process. The select board is not going to automatically put us on board without us saying yes or no. That's the voting. And there'll be an article in the warrant or a special vote. And if the town as a whole, majority says no, then it's done.
That's right.
The select board can't automatically sign Larry Draymond up.
His neighbor.
I'm your neighbor. I don't know. But that's the way I understand it.
Yes,
Correct me if I'm
absolutely.
wrong.
That's correct.
Yes, madam.
What's the RSA, sir?
The RSA, it's 53E.
Where does the electricity come from in the lines?
Well, it comes from a variety of power generation that's managed through, in New England, ISO New England, which is the independent systems regulator that makes sure there's enough electricity in the system so that we don't have blackouts and brownouts.
Right.
But it comes from a wide range of sources. I mentioned the 24.3% renewable. So there has to be a certain mix that's purchased in New Hampshire that meets that requirement. So it's a wide range of both renewable and, you know, our base load in New Hampshire, like in most states, is nuclear. And that is typically providing in the 20 to 30% of production of the base load. And then depending upon the time of year and the amount of demand, you've got plants that are just generating every day, and ones that kick in only when the demand is at its highest, and they're often gas powered. Yes, sir.
You mentioned reserves that we would benefit from.
Yeah.
Does Canaan benefit from Canaan's reserves, or does Canaan share with all of the reserves for the coalition?
The reserves are community wide, but they are accounted for by each individual community. There's no to be a member of the coalition, each community has one vote. So it doesn't matter if you're a large municipality or a small town, you still have the same vote within the coalition. But the portioning of your reserves are based upon the actual amount of electricity that's procured on behalf of the town of Canaan. But those reserves are accounted for and maintained locally as Canaan reserves, because if you chose to exit the coalition, for example, you would be able to have those reserves available to the town of Canaan to do whatever you chose. The first job of the reserve is to make sure that we get rate stability and we are credit worthy. The more money you have as cash on hand, the higher level of procurement you can take. And we aim to be the gold standard in terms of procurement. That's job one. Once we get to excess reserves, and we're talking 5 years and more down the line, there may well be money that would be directly available to Canaan to spend in a variety of ways, such as energy efficiency, helping people to insulate the homes, that kind of thing.
So Andrew, the first step would be, if we wanted to pursue this and see what people in town had an appetite for, it would be to see if we can see who has an interest in maybe forming this electric or the.
Yes, so if you have an energy committee or
Mhm.
a group of folks, I know that you have a group that are talking about this.
Mhm.
The role of the select board would just to be formally appoint, and it's called an energy aggregation committee.
Okay.
And they would be charged with that responsibility of developing the plan and conducting the public meetings and everything like that. So it's just it's a non-binding arrangement to join the coalition. And, you know, even when you get a plan, it doesn't commit you to moving
Right, it still has
forward.
to be voted on the town. meeting.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. You wanna look at it, Marcy, then I wanna move that we, you know, we put in our newsletter to ask for interest in forming this committee and have people come to maybe a select board meeting in February. That's my motion.
I would second. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye. Yeah.
A minimum of 3.
3
but,
or 5, right?
Yeah, I mean,
3 to
that's,
5.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, we say 5.
Thank you.
Fine.
for the information.
We're gonna have an
Very,
honor.
very informative.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's not gonna happen until next year.
Right,
Yeah, it still has to go before town meeting. and it
Yeah,
can't
there's
happen this
still
year.
big
Well-
process that has
The
to.
goal is March 2025.
Okay,
Now, if we, too long.
Well, so
we
there-
need to, you know, give lots of public input and.
Well, no, I want to clarify because there was discussion earlier about water funding, and we may have to have a special
Oh,
town meeting earlier than next year. So we may have one early summer, and we maybe will incorporate in that if it's, the interest is there. Okay,
Yeah, just also, so we've met as the Canaan Energy Committee, probably 3 or 4 times, just to talk about this and get in here and, just hopefully, you know, get the ball rolling, and it really is your choice in terms of how you want to set it up. But there is sort of a group already ready to go.
Who's on, who's
Maybe
part of
that group should come to an upcoming select board meeting, kind of be officially appointed, kind of get some light underneath it.
It's an option and, you know, it's really your choice, but yes, I'm gonna do that.
I got another question on that. So when this group gets together and they decide what they want to do with the coalition, that has to go before the town to get voted.
Correct.
We just don't vote on.
Correct.
No,
That is
the only
correct.
things the group would be doing would be, first of all, they, you know, the town joins the, coalition itself. And just as a non-binding, they're just a member. And then the only thing the group would be doing is actually, looking at the, aggregation plan and bringing it, you know, doing public information sessions, getting feedback from the community, see what they want in the plan, that kind of thing. Once the plan is done, and then you vote on it at town meeting. If there's nothing, it's just basically the working group. to get-
Well, I just want to make sure that I have a chance to vote on this. It's something that I don't like.
Yes.
Is what I'm,
Yeah.
that's all I was asking.
Yeah, well, that, and those would be in the listening session, of the group, what we wanted it, that kind of thing. So,
yeah, like David said, it's still a democracy and we have all this process and. Yeah.
Right, I just wanted to clarify it myself. I didn't know if we like formed a committee and the committee decided what the town was gonna do with the planes. That's all.
No, the more input, the better. So,
thank you.
And that's frequently why it takes a year, because, you know, it's a fairly new concept for most residential customers. And, you know, there's no reason to race to save money. You know, the idea is educate you. None of these rates would ever even take effect unless they were lower than what everybody's paying now. I mean, that's the important part. So there's no downside, but this year would be an educational process to get people comfortable with the fact that you frankly don't know who you're buying your electrons from anyway right now. You think it's coming from Liberty, but it's not. They buy it just like you're gonna end up buying it, or at least that would be the conversation. So it's all right. There's no rush to do anything. It'll be the job of the Energy Committee and the board to kind of make everybody feel comfortable with whatever the decision is. And then ultimately that'll culminate in a warrant article. And all of those discussions will then flow through town meeting.
So next thing on the agenda is dedication of the 2023 annual report. We've had a little back and forth discussion or throwing out some names. Anybody want to bring up anything on that? I'm not leading it.
You can always ask for nominations.
So I had 2 recommendations actually that I threw forward. One was for Marty Pusey, who passed away this past year. Marty was on the budget committee. She was an elementary school special ed teacher. She served a variety of roles in the town over the years and
Supervisor of the checklist.
yeah, so I don't have my notes in front of me. Thank you, Becky. So and the other one was drawing a blank. I apologize. Dennis Salville, who also passed away this past year, and Dennis spent many years doing a lot for the community, and also was on the budget committee for many years. So I don't know, Sadie, did you have any other suggestions or?
No, John May though. John was right
That,
there.
I was gonna say Dennis, thank you, that's, yeah.
And we do have a list of the deaths at the town office if you'd like to go over them.
Yeah, I did go over it and I didn't, but again, I didn't see anything else that really sparked me. And that doesn't mean I missed something because I don't know everybody in town, obviously, so. Yeah, David.
In years past, when we had a discussion about who should the report be dedicated to, we went through it and said, let's have a double. At 2 people. So that's an option, I think that you folks have, dedicated to who?
Yeah.
I've seen that
I
before.
mean, I think last year we had 3 people. It was actually
Yeah,
designated.
and
to-
you know, there's nothing wrong with that.
Right,
Don't feel like I'm just
Yeah.
suggesting, don't feel like it has to be one person. It
No.
doesn't.
Thank you.
and thanks, David.
Vicky, did you have any suggestions?
I honestly haven't, no, yeah,
Okay.
all the way.
Okay.
Okay. Well, all those details are wrapping up for the town report to get out, so we will be making that decision shortly, so we'll just,
So do you want a motion?
yes.
Okay, I'll move that we dedicate it to Marty and Dennis.
We have a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us up to other business, so. David?
My name's Dave McAllister. I have a petition, to reinstate John Hennessy. It was given out to the town of Orange and the town of Canaan. The town of Canaan has over 230 signatures on it in 10 days. Town of Orange has brought in about 20 to 25. The petition, I'll read it, so everybody knows what we're talking about. We, the citizens, and I'll use Canaan for example, just change it to Orange if you want. Citizens of the town of Canaan petition the town of Canaan selectmen to approve the reinstatement of John Hennessy as fire chief, EMS chief, emergency service director, and the building inspector of Canaan. John Hennessy has been a lifetime resident of the town of Canaan and a volunteer for many years. He and his family are very important to the citizens of Canaan and surrounding towns. The surrounding towns rely on Canaan for fire and ambulance service, and it is important for us that the John Hennessy direction of the departments run smoothly. While he did file to resign, within 24 hours, he rescinded that resignation. The selectmen decided they would accept the resignation. The citizens of the town of Canaan are concerned of this decision. We asked the selectmen to approve John Hennessy's reinstatement. And I'll bring that up to you. I have just 2 statements, and if someone else wants to talk, by all means. This petition is not about who's right or who's wrong. It's about what's right and what's wrong. And this petition is not a war. That's the last thing we want in the town of Canaan. We got plenty going on in the world today. It is avoiding war. So I'll bring that up to you.
Thanks, Dave.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have anything? Yes, sir.
My name is Bob Barrett, I'm resident of Canaan. And the reason I'm here tonight mainly is for exactly what Dave was just talking about. And frankly, I have 2 things to say on the subject. Number one, this is Canaan. This is not Manchester. This is not Boston. This is even Lebanon. It's Canaan. Everyone here knows everyone here more or less. And I think that it's no secret what John has done for this community. And it's no secret that he did put in a resignation. But hell, I've done something I've regretted almost instantly, and I think the person that doesn't exist. I think he should be given a second chance on this, for the simple fact that everyone deserves a second chance. And this town is too small for people to be small-minded about something like that. The second thing I want to mention is when I go to bed at night, I go to sleep comfortable in the fact that I have someone like John as the fire chief here. I feel good because of my family, and I feel good because of myself. A little bit selfish, yes, but the fact is a fact. I would hate to see personalities or anything else threaten my feeling of comfort. That's my selfish end. But basically, what I want to say is, I've known John for quite a while. I've known him personally and professionally. I know his qualifications. I truly and honestly believe he should be given another chance. That's all. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I think it's important before other people start giving more comments too, to say that the only item discussion for that petition is to reinstate John. I don't think anybody thinks there weren't mistakes made along the way by multiple people. But reinstating John and then doing the work, going through the process to talk about the items that got this whole situation here and resolving those is very important to the town. And again, nobody is saying John's perfect. John hasn't made mistakes. And any other mistakes that may or may not have been made in the events that led up to this. I just think that y'all need to handle those, to resolve those, to come to a peaceful, positive end so that we can move forward. There's a very large push for people who just want to see John back in that position, whatever that is going to take for you guys to work out.
I'm sorry, can you just identify yourself? I don't think you did that at the
I
beginning.
did not, Bob Souza.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Karen.
I just want to affirm that, and I just like to say to the select board something a supervisor of mine told me a long time ago. And that is, a pancake has two sides. And that it behooves us to consider two sides when there is a difference of opinion and a conflict. Thank you.
Mark?
So John has been in fire service probably for 40 years or whatever. He's a pillar of the community. He's down at that fire station, whether he was the fire chief, whether he wasn't the fire chief. He knows more about what's going on in that with all the trucks, the equipment. He's on top of it all. He's a gem of this community. And we should be looking to him, even if he resigned, because we all get that opinion. Within 24 hours, he wanted to come back. And I would like to know from you guys why it is that you don't give him the second chance. I mean, he's just done so much for this community. He's moved this department forward. It made that, we were kind of hoping it would go in. I'm not saying that the department's gonna change. But I would like to see John come back as the fire chief, being reinstated.
Duly noted, Mark.
I didn't really like what was put out there on the town website either. Yeah, and then it was put in under somebody's name that no longer works here.
Excuse me?
There was an email that went out about Ron.
So
Under.
we were in, okay, so you're talking about Ashley's name on that?
Yes.
Yeah, so all the newsletters have come out with Ashley. Because she was an interim, she was still actually helping out, even though she'd gone on to a new job. She was still working in that
Still
position, so it still is and helping us out, even though we've got that position refilled. So Ashley was still in that position.
So, but she wasn't the one that did the email.
No, that's from the selectmen, like all the email blasts are from the select board, so, or the town manager, town administrator, sorry. So, yes, that came out from the board, as it said in the letter, so. Anyone else have anything? Larry?
I understand the town of Canaan has a hard time finding qualified people. There's nobody more qualified than John. If he has an it's everybody's job to work with him. I think maybe he's a man of too many hats. When I say that, there's a lot of responsibility going on the man, being building inspector, safety inspector, fire chief. That's a lot to ask of one man without him getting upset once in a while. So I don't know what the problem was. Personally, I don't really care. What I do know is I've known John for a long time. And I have utmost respect for him. And I'd be saying it for anybody that was of his stature.
Thanks,
It's nothing to do with any.
understood.
I don't want it to be lost that I've known John for upwards of 25 years myself and have an admiration for John Hennessy, and I've told him that many times and I make it public. I have a great appreciation for him and what his family does for this town. Great appreciation. I like John and his family personally. This isn't an easy job. I wish John was here this evening. Because I'd like to be able to speak further on it, but quite frankly, I don't feel comfortable talking about John and our involvement in the personnel part of it without John here. I just don't. And that's why we have said, and I personally have said nothing. Unfortunately, part of being a board means that we act as and are viewed as a whole. It's not always the case, and I know for a fact there are times on the previous board that I sat on that they absolutely wanted to distance themselves from me, and I wanted to distance myself from them. There are times where this board has felt the same. That's the hard part of it. And I wish John was here, and I don't want anyone to misconstrue the fact. I like John. John is a good man. He's always been very good to me. I have zero personally bad to say about John. Alton, I like Alton. I have a great respect for that young man. Before I was even on the board or ran for board, I didn't know Alton all that well, didn't really even know who he was at the deliberative session. But I made a point to speak up that we got a young man that's here, taking his time out of the day to do this, and nobody even thanked him for doing it. Because he does this, because even though it is a thankless job. So, yeah.
Just the point of like clarification. So what you're saying, Dan, is that you don't have a problem with John Hennessy, but it's these two? I mean, you said you want to distance them. I mean, you used some veiled language there, but is that what you're saying? Because the blowback from this, if this is not resolved in a way that the townsfolk appreciate, is gonna happen at the election. And we want to know.
I stand behind the board's decision. I stand behind the board's decision, and I stand behind the board's decision based on information that I would really. I'm having a hard time.
It just gets very inappropriate to talk about somebody when they're not in the room, particularly a personnel.
I'm not talking.
I mean, a lot of it's out there already. But at some point, if he wants to be part of this, he should be here. And then, well, maybe they happen to have a discussion.
I mean, I just have to, then the board's decision is based just sheerly on ignorance and, personal issues. There is not, John hasn't been arrested, he hasn't been accused of any crime, he hasn't been accused of anything hourly, that was inappropriate. And so there should be no reason other than his qualifications and personal issues to reinstate him.
Again, you're only here one side of the story. The only people that know what happened are us and John,
Well,
quite frankly.
that is true,
So,
but
Well, that's not true because of that email,
excuse me?
that email. You said he resigned 3 times. I don't know what he chose.
Me too.
Again, we're not gonna go into it without John in the room, so.
Can I speak to that, please?
Yep.
Bob Souza again from Pheasant Lane. I spent a lot of time with John and Lorraine this past week, just giving him someone to talk to. And it's probably my fault he's not here, because it was a very emotional thing for both of them. And I thought they would have a hard time controlling their emotions. But I know for a fact, one or both of them would gladly sit down and talk it out with you guys. But they're not here tonight because with all the people and things that may or may not get said, I suggested that they sit home and let the town handle this. But by all means, if you're willing to talk to them, I know he will come talk to you. I just thought it was too raw and too emotional tonight. So that's on me.
I personally, speaking for myself, I would love to speak with John. We haven't spoken in a couple weeks, and that may be one of the longest periods since I've been a board member that we haven't sent anything to each other. But I didn't feel it was appropriate for me to unilaterally reach out to John either. But yeah, I think that's an important part of this whole quagmire that we're all in that hasn't happened, quite frankly, Bob.
Is it important enough for all the board members to say that they can speak to each other and sit down?
We would have to.
I
So
mean, it's a simple thing, man, just did.
I've known John for years as well, known Alton all his life. I mean,
Would you be willing to sit down?
absolutely.
You, ma'am, would you be willing to?
Yeah, I was hoping that he would reach out to us at some point and want to do that. Absolutely, I would speak with him.
I would hope to actually, more than being willing, but I don't think it was the right position for me
It's good to know
unilaterally
that-
to reach out.
It's good to know that everybody isn't shut down if they're willing to speak.
Absolutely. I'm sorry.
Mark?
Keith.
Are you willing to reconsider after talking to John?
Well, that's not something I'm gonna talk about until after we talk to John.
Well, I
I
understand.
mean, that's kind of a silly question, Mark. Don't give me an I gotcha. What are you talking? Yeah. Vicky, did you have something you wanted to ask?
He did reach out to you. He did come before you to try to rescind his resignation. So.
And at the time,
maybe he
the board was
waiting for
unanimous in their
you
decision,
folks-
Vicky, so.
Right, but maybe he was waiting for you folks to reach out. Yeah.
Understood.
And yeah, and so maybe that's a miscommunication, but if he's willing to talk with us now, he didn't reach out to me to ask to rescind.
Nor me.
Right, I
So it
have
was
not
made
had
by-
that
He
communication.
calls me,
So the decision was made by one person?
no,
The decision had gone back and forth through the administrator, and the decision as a whole stayed the same. John
So
reached
Steve,
out
you
to Stephen,
called-
Stephen got with Jack, Jack got with us, we got with
Again,
Jack.
I think if you're gonna meet with him, then.
Yeah.
Because this is just turning in the public light and it's probably unnecessary.
Yeah.
And frankly, even if he resigned and wanted to stay resigned, the fire department has the statutory authority to nominate him to be the chief. Regardless.
Do they know that?
But the selectmen.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
the selectmen
We have
approved it.
told the,
And we've had meetings with,
It's not the fire can.
we have also met, that's correct, Dave.
Right, they can recommend the select board as the firing and the hiring.
And we've recommended, we've met with senior leadership of the fire department to ensure services are covered. And we have presented that to them as well. And, you know, we said if we. Again, to Larry's point, there's a lot of hats covered by that position. And we've had discussions about separating them out and asked. Ricky and Hugh if they were interested in our support to find a new chief or to move forward or whatever. So those discussions are still underway.
So, just so I can clarify something, fire department can be mad all I want or whatever, but just so everybody in this room knows, our bylaws state that it must be a resident of Canaan that is the fire chief. So, it ain't gonna be, you know, I read in the town newsletter that you put in if somebody's interested in, if they don't live in the town of Canaan, they can't be the fire chief, period.
So we haven't done any effort.
Bylaws. That's the bylaws of our department. And then the RSA that goes along with it states that the fire department, you know, chooses the chief. And you guys can approve it or disapprove it, so. Really, this could go on for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. You never know, because we could send somebody to be chief and you guys could deny it. So I'm just throwing that out there so the public knows this, because that's how it works. I mean, that's the RSA, you can't do nothing with the RSA,
I think there's a question online.
so.
Sandra, go ahead.
Hey, I just want to voice my concern regarding the refusal to reconsider John Hennessy's resignation. I don't know if it's based on someone having someone else in mind, considered for those positions or what, but there's no better man of integrity and commitment to this town, whom I have known for almost 40 years, and his father before him. The whole family are just wonderful servants for our community. And the critical services that John was in charge of cannot be left without a director or a leader. And I am urging the select board to please seriously reconsider reinstating John. He's the most highly qualified of any person for those positions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else have anything?
I do. I want to say thanks, everybody, for being civil.
I got
Appreciate that too.
a different topic, when, all right.
I'm ready.
So I would like to know. I guess I would like to know. How come we've had a town employee run a wing down the side of a vehicle? Another town employee get an ambulance stop. And then we had a town employee cut a chain so he could get fuel to do his work. He gets fired. And the other two are still riding around like they're just joyriding. I don't, the guy that cut the chain to get fuel, he was working. I don't even understand why he didn't have a key. It was town stuff. He gets fired. We get somebody that runs down a car, then says that he didn't. I've driven plow truck before. I'm sorry to say, you hit something, you feel it in the truck. And then, like I said, we take the town ambulance and get it buried someplace we shouldn't even have been. I never see them guys doing any time off or anything, but we fire somebody because they cut a chain on a padlock to a fuel tank. Doesn't make sense to me.
Okay, Wes, appreciate your concern, but again, we're not gonna discuss HR issues in public, so.
I just don't get it. Doesn't make sense.
Was there an incident where a town truck ran into another vehicle in a hit and run and didn't report it? Not the person, but was the town truck involved in a hit and run on the
Yes.
Pondor and King?
Yes,
Okay. Very good. And there will be a hearing, consequences, as the town, as town people, taxpayers, we will get to know that a resolution,
you probably will not, because it's an HR issue, Mike, so.
okay? So then if we don't see a resolution, like what's our avenue of recourse?
Become a selectman.
Come with like. Fair.
Did that person deny and blame it on another vehicle?
Again, I'm not gonna get into the specific work, so.
So.
What's your name?
Bill Tibbetts,
Hi, Bill.
Fernwood Farms. So you're talking about HR issues. And back to Mr. Hennessy, and you don't want to talk about him because he's not here, but yet you put it out on email that there was 2 or 3 other incidents. I think as a townsperson, if you're gonna open that can of worms, then fill us in a little bit.
I'm not gonna do that. Again, not with John not in the room. And I think we've already come to a solution there that we will talk to John, so if he wants to come in. Yes,
I think like your husband said with the petition, basically they just want the board to reconsider the resignation and then to peacefully decide the issues behind it. I think that enough has been said here that the board should know. The town is behind this man, John. And, basically reconsidering the resignation is what the petitions were all about. And then work behind the scenes to do what needs to be done.
Thank you.
Jack, can you reach out to John and schedule something, please? Thank you.
Was John considered for Larry Brader?
Yep.
Was John considered for being, fired prior to his resignation?
No,
He was not,
That's all it is.
like, -0.
yes,
Albert, quick question. Are you gonna contact John Hennessy, or are you gonna wait for him to contact you?
It just asked Jack to
Yeah.
contact him to schedule a meeting. Yep, yep.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Listen, thank you guys. I know this is something that I get it. So I get it. It's something we all feel strongly about, and quite frankly, this is what I started doing before I ran for board. I appreciate that everybody came out, and I appreciate we kept it civil. I do. Thank you, guys. Yep.
You people are enough to invite us, and we wanted to let you know how we're feeling.
Absolutely. Yep. And we hear you. I hear you.
motion to go into non-public,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Again, thank you everyone for coming out.
Yeah, please drive careful.
You guys, your service.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks.